Hello there, Sir from 17 once again. This is my Bayonetta Hard Pure Platinum run. This is Chapter 15, Tower to Truth, and this is a double-sided sword of a level. So when I first played through this level in this run, I thought it was easy. You know, I was getting platinums on first attempt, this was a first attempt, the next few were first attempts. I really felt like I'd got better at the game, and I was becoming a better player, a more consistent player, and it was all making sense. Turns out I missed an Alfheim, and the Alfheim that I missed is one of the hardest for me in the game, or for me in this run to be specific, and I don't know why. But the one thing that drove home how much I hated it was you have to run every single time you retry it, all the way back down every floor in this tower, jump across a big gap and enter the portal. It's literally, it takes longer to get back to it than it does to mess up inside it. And whenever that is the case, that is literally the most soul-crushing parts. When you spend longer on the run back than you do on the fight, there's problems there. And I just couldn't do it. I really couldn't. And it was a breaking point for my spirit, but I got through it. And when I beat it, I immediately dashboarded, I immediately backed up my save, and I'll probably never do that Alfheim ever again because of the taste it left in my mouth. And it sucks too, because every verse on this level is fun. You fight every enemy in the game, they're a nice ensemble, it's a nice arena, you can never really blame the camera or environmental hazards or anything like that. The jumping sections later on, yeah, they're a bit shit, but you know, you can put up with them, you can get over that. But the Alfheim, oh, so bad. So hard. There is verse 2, that's the final adder. And we should get the kiss to get rid of the wall. There we go. And then you'll notice that I run back quite a lot. You probably won't notice because I'll edit it out. But I run back a lot to check when that Alfheim opens up because I wasn't entirely sure. Right here are the Braves. The Braves have an attack that you have to avoid a lot closer to the damage contact than a lot of other attacks in this game. The window on his swing is massive. The window on the Brave swings is much tighter. By no means is it, you know, insanely tight, like a just guard would be on a Devil May Cry, or a perfect parry on something like, you know, Metal Gear Revengeance, which the timing in that is still pretty flexible for the most. But this fight is really easy. You know, when you fought these dudes without witch time, having witch time just makes it really fun. And it's the choice of, do you attack the core and kill them quicker and get a lower score, or do you not attack the core, build a higher combo and get a higher, you know, get a higher score? And at this moment in time, I'm conscious of my rings because I want to buy the platinum ticket. And I actually thought the platinum ticket cost 10 million to buy. It only actually costs 1 million. But you have to purchase it every time you want to fight him, unless you continue when you die kind of thing and you go back in. But when you beat him, you have to pay it again to fight him again, which is kind of shitty. And there's no checkpoint on that fight, so you have to keep going in the fucking shop, which is just a nightmare. Because Rodin, if you've never fought him, is the hardest boss in the game, by far, because there's no witch time, he's completely immune to it, and he attacks so ferociously that you run out of dodges sometimes. You know, it's really tricky. He's got a ton of attacks, he gets more aggressive as he goes, and he has about 9 life bars. It's insane, it's really insane, and I'm not a big fan of the fight because I can't do it with witch time. I just like, you know, hard a lot more than I do infinite climax. But this verse is verse 5, you're taking on 3 joys. Joys are a comfortability factor. I prefer to have them on screen if I can, so that I don't get kicked from off screen or whipped. Which a lot of people apparently have never had happen. Which tells me that I don't think they've fought the joys enough. Because when I first played through this game, I didn't have it happen to me, but when I was recording this, you can bet your damn ass I did. And for the most, You know, their attacks happen as they enter the screen, and if it's a lunging attack, it happens very quickly. But I have several pieces of footage where they're not even at the edge of the screen, and they streak towards you. It's some of the worst aspects of the game, and I say that really lightly, because I think this is one of the action titles that I find the less flaws in. The least amount of flaws is probably a better way of putting that. But here is a couple of... what are these guys called? I can't remember. Enchants, I think? Arsehole wheel wankers, that's what I call them. Obviously it's not safe for children. You might have to paraphrase them into something else. But once you beat them, no checkpoint into a double gracious and glorious fight. Once again, if your parry timing is practiced, you'll be okay with them. And I actually really like this enemy now, and I never thought I would. And one thing I'd really like is if on Infinite Climax, if you got a perfect parry, if it gave you witch time, I think that would be really cool. Because it would reward skill, and it would allow a player like myself to play Infinite Climax my own way. And I think that's the thing that bugs me the most about that difficulty level, is you have to play it one way and one way only, and that is by Wicked Weave dodge offsets, because that's literally the only way to survive. You know, if you try doing combos on standard enemies, they'll just interrupt you. So you have to get really sharp on your dodge offset. And it's a cool technique. Somebody was explaining to me the notion of using Panther to do dodge offset, which I know about, but I don't use it too much. And my main reason for it is it allows you to store the insanely powerful last attack of a Wicked Weave and run around and unleash it from Panther mode. So it's about as powerful as it gets. It's insanely powerful, and it's really effective too. But when you start doing it, it puts you into a mentality where it's kind of all you do. And the point of this, for me personally, was to do things I'm not really all that comfortable with. And that was, use the weapons that I never really went near, try to juggle, try to launch enemies and mess around in the sky, try to use moves and movesets that I have generally ignored / never really discovered. So that's why you'll see that I've got Durga on my hands at the moment, because I'm mixing it up a little bit. I've been using pretty much every weapon on the game at some point. But this is verse 8. This is a strange Temperance fight where if you can bash the button, you're winning. But strangely enough, if you get witch time here, or if you use the bangle of time, your rockets don't seem to reach him. Because I tried freezing time and then just bukakiing his face, but it turns out, he's either got an incredibly high tolerance to protein, or it's just one of those things where for some reason the slow motion affects the physics of the projectile, and it doesn't move, which is kind of cool, I guess. Oh, by the way, those green bullets, you do not have to press B to get off this turret, just press dodge. Bayonetta will evade and cancel away from the animations. That's all you want to do. Shoot him, shoot him, shoot him, and then evade. And when he does his big destroy the turret thing, either get off and run away, or use iframes. And the iframes I'm going to use is a technique like that. See that technique? As Bayonetta goes into that hole, that entire dance animation, she's completely invulnerable. You can cancel it before it initiates, but I panicked and kept it in, and that is why I took no damage from the laser just then. Any other alternatives? Dodging it with the standard evade, not enough iframes, not long enough, you take damage. Getting up and running away does work, but that is a fantastic move if you've never used it. Any move you can't dodge that you can see coming, hold right trigger and press B, I think it is, and she will do that. And at the beginning, you're laughing. So I believe this is the hellish Alfheim. So witch time is disabled. All the enemies are on fire, I think. It's just a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. So you'll notice I'm using the evil rosary beads, which, if you've never used them before, when you do an evade that would give you witch time, you release a little skull that explodes and does damage and gives you magic. And my strategy here is simple. I am going to lure attacks, avoid them, and build my combo with my gun. Then, when something dies or I get enough ability points, enough magic, sorry, to do a witch time execution, one of the torture attacks, I'm going to steal the weapon, the angel arm, and then I'm going to use the angel arm while watching for the counter-attack, because they will attack through your angel arms without witch time. And then I'm going to avoid it, stun them with the rosary bead, and continue to shoot. And the reason I'm doing this is because it took me about an hour to beat this, and I didn't get the combo ranking. I nearly cried. I really did. Because it was horrible. Just horrible. A terrible experience. Like, it was that point where I was saying to myself, Chris, why did you say you'd do this? You know, why did you think you could do this? You know, you have all this hair on your head. Do you really want to lose it all? Or have a big shoal of silver? As refining as it makes people like Steve Martin look, you're probably just like a douche. But I always knew that I was one run away from doing it. And every time I got hit, it was always some bullshit reason that, not the game's fault, but me. Like, why did I get hit? Why did I not dodge? You know, why? Just so many whys. And I did get mad. I also had Gaze of Despair on, if you didn't realise. I was using it to boost my points. But it's just so mean. So mean. And then I tried this strategy, and I found out that the Evil Rosary, not only does it build witch time, does it build stylish points, does it deal damage, but the most important thing is it stuns enemies. It is a guaranteed stun on almost everything. It stuns Rodin, for Christ's sake, or Rodan if you want to pronounce it like the voice actors do. Which I'm sorry, but there's a fucking I. But the tricky part here is, obviously the Arders have that really fast thrust that they can do just on camera, which can catch you out really quickly, that one. And also, the other dude that's with him can fire fireballs, can immobilise you, can do a lot of attacks that you don't see because he's behind the Ardor, and the Ardor's big and glowing and shiny and mighty and armoured and everything. So the biggest enemy here is just the chaos of battle and getting caught and getting clipped, because it's all over. And I think there's going to be some fucking joys or something like glorious grace and glories or something after this wave, where you just, really? Really? You saved that for this moment? You couldn't just let me have the victory? But you'll notice I've dropped my combo. I didn't see when, I was too busy talking. I don't think it's important because we hit the 9.9 and we got a decent bonus. So at this point we're just trying to get it back up there, just for that safety blanket. Time isn't an issue, damage is. There are my Tetsuzankos every so often. Oh no, there's nothing after that, it's just that. Was that the one that I had a really tough time with? I think it was. Suffice to say, I think it was. And it's strange because you watch it like this and you think, well, that looked easy. And that's the problem with this. That's the problem with all guides. That's the problem with all runs, you know. You don't see the hell. You don't see the eyes of the demon until him come calling. And it's hard to really get across the suffering involved. And it's one of those purely personal things, because you might not have any problem with that one, you might love that one, that might be a favourite one, but somebody else, it could just be visions of hell. A little bit like this fight. This is a trash fight, this. For some reason, Justice here does nothing but spam attacks you can't get witch time off. Every attack you've seen so far cannot be witch time avoided. This one can. As soon as he does this one, you can shit in his mouth. Which, a lot of people don't seem to realise that this channel was founded on dick jokes, so they didn't take too kindly to my my little litany of filth on the Justice boss fight. But there's something definitely Geiger-esque in this entire design, and now you've seen my my penis imagery that's being evoked by these these model. You can't not see it. That's the thing. Once you see it, guys, you can't not unsee it. But run along here like you did before. I think the addition on this particular fight is he can now do those little blobby poison droplets. But for the most, he's just a bootleg Justice, and he's very simple. By the end of this chapter, you will have fought every single one of the Cardinals. But here she goes. I wish you could do this. I wish there was a barehanded style that used stuff like this. Because there's something cool about that ray from Fist of the North Star, you know. He moves his hand across, and there's an after image of a line, a blue line when it's Ray, a red line when it's Bayonetta, and then shit just slices in half. If that isn't cool, I don't know what is. Which is why I often dream that I could be the creative director and spearhead a good Fist of the North Star game that isn't, you know, just a standard beat-em-up. Because the beat-em-up is actually really good. The Dynasty Warriors games are fucking dire, man. They're absolutely terrible. And I know exactly what I would do with that game as well. So many great ideas. But this is a fight against 2 Joys. And I'm sorry, but once you've fought 3 Joys, how can the game ever give you 2? It doesn't make any sense. Like, this is the last actual level. The next 2 are all boss fights, pretty much. This is probably the worst verse on the level. The next one's shit as well. Because you have to do these stupid jumping sections to get to these platforms to fight Joys. And if you're not paying attention because you're annoyed by the jumping nonsense, when you land, as the Joys spawn, they can sometimes attack you. So be very careful. Also, if you're not quick enough on building your combo against the Joys, because they're very fragile, they die really quickly, you'll fail the criteria for style, for combo. And to make matters even worse, there's no checkpoint between this verse and the next one, which is unforgivable. But the good news is, if you drop all the way back down to where we started this ascent, there's a Gates of Hell, which will checkpoint after you get the perfect pure platinum. But I hate this. I really do. I love going to the door because it's easy once you've got the bird within, but I hate moving this direction across it because it just doesn't work. But if you haven't noticed, Joy is essentially you. She is Bayonetta in almost every form Bayonetta can have. She has the stiletto move, she has the whip, she has the bird within moves, she has a lot of stuff you do. It's pretty cool, actually. And I think her design is really interesting. I just think she's one of those enemies that, because she's so damn fast, she'll have a reputation for being a nightmare for some players. Like Grace and Glory, the only real reason why people struggle with that enemy is because they're so quick. You don't see the punch that hits you, and it's really tough learning to see the signpost of those punches, because some of them come out really quickly. Really quickly. And the irony on that is, for the most, some of the enemies signpost their attacks too much. So you spend an entire game, you know, learning this paradigm of he's going to glow, then swing, which tells me that an attack is coming, and then enemies have that instant swing, where before you've seen the flash, you've been hit. And it's just that thing of, it sets you up for a bit of a fall, you know, it builds up this false pretense and then slaps you in the face. And I have no issue with it, because I believe the attack should be fast. In fact, I think I'd prefer it if the moment you got close to the AI, they attacked. And I'm talking instant. Because I think it would make avoiding them easier. Because in a lot of games, whenever the enemy's in range of you, they're attacking you. So you know, the moment they get close, you have to be somewhere else. And that's the reason why the Steel on Bone works in Razor's Edge. Because the moment an enemy gets close, he initiates an attack. You dodge away from that attack, press a counter-attack, and do the Steel on Bone. And that's why that game, when you're doing Steel on Bone, can be one of the easiest Ninja Gaidens to date. And then at other moments when there is no opportunities for Steel on Bone, can be the most tedious, boring, bullshit, just worst action game ever made. Like, that's why a lot of it works. But I think it's Platinum's idea of fairness, because you'll notice in Bayonetta and in Metal Gear Rising, the attacks are signposted quite heavily. The only ones that aren't signposted as heavily are some of the bosses. Like this guy. The move he's doing right now is incredibly dangerous because it comes out so fast and his entire body's weaponized. The thing with it is, you will put yourself in a bad situation trying to deal damage, and then witch time will wear out and you'll take damage. So be aware of it, and the hardest criteria here is combo. Keeping your combo involves shooting it and hitting it a lot, and oftentimes it drops so quick you don't even realise you've lost it. But I believe that this is the final verse of the chapter. I could be wrong though. No, I think there's a Prudence one after this. But you've seen this one a dozen times. An interesting note as well, Hideki Kamiya wanted this golem to be different, but because of resource, budget and time, they didn't have those aforementioned things to do that, so this ended up just being another version with a handful of different moves. I think it was his original intentions for it to be the gracious and glorious equivalent of the golem. Which, another piece of trivia for you, those who are interested, the golem is neither angel nor demon, it's a construct. That's why it doesn't have an introduction the same, that's why it's not ranked the same as the other enemies. But here is Bootleg Prudence. This is actually tricky too. I fucked this up twice because I couldn't get a good combo. And you might wonder, well, how could you not get a good combo? Because he's just standing there letting you smack him on the jaw. Well, the problem here is the frame rate is so low that the inputs for the commands don't come out. And the amount of times you're trying to do the combos that get you the points and you do something completely different because it didn't register their input. And somebody might wonder, well, what does frame rate have to do with input? And the easiest answer to that is, if you have something at 30 frames per second, you have half the amount of input frames to someone at 60 frames per second. So if you have sub 20, your inputs can easily be misread or not read at all. And that is the trouble I had here, because the frame rate is just dog shit. And these are the bits that I'm really excited about when the Wii U version comes out, because Bayonetta's entire campaign is going to be a solid 60 frames per second. And some of the boss fights, the frame rate dies on them, and the reason it works is because a lot of the time they're always in witch time, you know, that constant witch mode, so you don't notice it as much. And I do think that that's a conceit on the developer's side. I think they realised that they couldn't keep the steady frame rate with all the particles going on and all the crazy, massive, epic bosses. So by putting it in witch time, it made it a lot easier for the player to not necessarily realise that the game was struggling. This sequence here as well, as long as you're in Panther Within, this fire will never catch you, it just looks like it should. And it's just intended to be more excited. You know, it's meant to get your blood going, and when you're going for a pure platinum rank and you forgot that that section does that, it definitely does that very thing. But that is the end of Tower of Truth. We have 2 boss fights coming, and another hellish Alfheim, which is probably one of the worst on the game for me. I had a lot of trouble with it, and I keep saying that every time these tough Alfheims crop up, but I really did get to that point of desperation where tears could have been shed if I've been so inclined. But thank you very much for watching, and you take care now.